parties, and barbecuing was discovered, and they would have like neighborhood parties. They would line up barbecue pits, and steaks would be cooked. And the classic line on steaks, I had a cousin visiting one time. He said, "Steaks so groß wie Klodeckel." Steaks as big as toilet seat covers. Anyway, these people were on their, they were still pulling even from their starving times during the war when they, didn't have meat. Back on the resourceful task. In our neighborhood, I know one time we went to Germany for the summer for 3 months. My mother and my sister and I. And when we came back, our house had a double garage. And so did a bunch of other houses. Anyway, during that summer we were gone, they did these garage raisings. Anyway, they got together. Anyway, this was a construction method that was, I watched a lot of construction in my youth, and I never saw anything like this. They bought raw cut oak, and it was 2x, real 2x, not 1.5. It was 2x, really rough cut, and they nailed these huge spikes into it. And I know it took huge hammers because there were new hammers around the shop. So anyway, I think I can remember about 8 of those double garages, in the neighborhood across the street. Anyway, that is one of your stories that I hadn't heard before. Let's see here. I think you covered all these other things, like the money pool to cover, everybody put in, and then they have a pool of money and move it from bank account to bank account while they qualified for loans to build houses. Anyway, I think the bankers knew what was going on, and they were all, everything was okay, but you had to dot the I's and cross the T's.
But they pay back.
Let's see, I wanted to talk about the Maldens, the native Southerners. They actually had to learn some German words to play cowboys and Indians with us in the beginning. That's how German our neighborhood was. Let's see. Oh, there's some interesting things about rocket scientists. I mean, you heard about the carpentry thing, but electrical wiring. If you look up in the attics and under the houses of those people, they did so much wiring with lamp cord. They didn't have any idea of building codes or number 12, number 14 wiring and all that. Anyway, in our house, I can still find lamp cord wiring. Anyway, they were doing all the sophisticated stuff, putting a man on the moon, but at home, they could be pretty primitive. Let's see here. There was one custom we started. Well, there were 2 big customs. One was we shared Thanksgiving with the Huters who lived next door. And Thanksgiving, unlike American families, we had red cabbage, rotkohl. Anyway, we'd have that. And Mrs. Huter introduced us to Brussels sprouts, which I'd never seen. Anyway, on the food is really, okay, all the houses were these 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, suburban tract homes. It was just like everybody lived in them, and that's what people could afford, and it was immediately post-war, and they were stamped out like cookie cutters, just like in this song. So what did I want to say about those houses? It'll come. Okay, so you got the barbecue stories, you got the Thanksgiving stories. Christmas was very different. I know that our family had a big Christmas party on Christmas Day, the 25th, 11 o'clock. Everybody in the neighborhood would arrive at our house. And drinking was a big part of this. There was Christmas cookies, yes, but there were also daiquiris, martinis, you name it. And, to the point where by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there were people that had to be carried home. Anyway, it was a big German or German-American Christmas party. I don't know how Christmas is done in Germany. I'm definitely an in-between. This, it's a neighborhood party. Okay, so I grew up at the edge of town. Blossomwood was developing. Anyway, this was before the day of serial killers and child molesters, and I could go wherever I wanted to. My mother never worried. She never knew where I was. Anyway, the whole west side of Montesano was my territory. I could spend, all my time out in the woods, turning over rocks and streams, picking up bugs, snakes, crawdads. Anyway, it was ideal. That's the way I remember it. It was just ideal. And then when they started building the subdivision, of course there was always building to observe and exactly how they did everything. Plumbing, electrical, carpentry. It was entertaining, and they didn't really run you off. You could ask questions. It was fun. There's another memory I have. Lederhosen Pride. Anyway, my parents didn't think anything of sending me out in Lederhosen. And I was, really proud of those things. You never had to wash them. That was the best thing.
They stand up by
Anyway,
themselves.
the Lederhosen would have stains. It was like memorabilia. Every stain, there was a memory associated with it. Anyway, the biggest nostalgia trip, and this is just hindsight. At a certain point, after you pave the road, then you have to come in and put a sewer in. So you dig up the road, big trench, and there were these big black guys that would always finish digging out the bottom of the trench. And these guys, they had been GIs in Germany. I show up in my Lederhosen, and they have nostalgia trip. It just sends them back to the beer and the girls, I'm sure. Anyway, so there were more conversation partners, those guys. So I learned about the minimum wage and all that good stuff. Let's see here. I got to talk about food because, from the outside, the tract houses look just the same. How would you know it was a German family? Anyway, if you go in, they would be speaking German. Our parents tried to keep us speaking German as long as we could, but as soon as we went to kindergarten and school, we started speaking English. So we spoke German at home. The other thing, food. It was only like German style food. Kohlrouladen, Rouladen, I don't know, rolled up. Anyway, it was serious. Cabbage, carrots, potatoes. Thinking back, I wonder about the curiosity of my mom. A squash never crossed our doorway. Squash, melons, all these great things. Okra, never. Anyway, I remember when I discovered, chicken barbecue came into the menu. It was like a weekend dish. Chicken barbecue and barbecue sauce recipe out of the newspaper. Anyway, I remember this sauce. Anyway, it had two unique things in there. Lots of garlic, but olive oil and okra. Anyway, somehow the stickiness of the okra, I guess, was supposed to make this barbecue sauce cling to the chicken better. Anyway, that was something we learned. Chicken barbecue came in. And then Dr. Gruna was in our neighborhood, and he discovered smoked turkey and turkey smokers. Anyway, that was a big thing that came in, and then especially water smokers. I went to town on turkey and water smokers. Okay, the other thing that would distinguish us is Christmas. Christmas, okay, our family, looking back on it, we were secular Lutherans. We went to church as a family on Christmas Eve, and that was the time when Santa Claus came. I mean, we had these certain beliefs and customs. One was, you never saw the Christmas tree until Christmas Eve. So of course, what kind of Christmas trees can you get that late? It's remainder time. I remember once or twice my father, he actually made one tree out of a couple of remainders. Anyway, you couldn't have the tree till Christmas Eve, and of course it always had to be a spruce or something like that. And you had to have candles on the tree. That was the other thing. And then Christmas cookies. I mean, I can list them off, but those of you that know the Christmas cookies, there's a whole lineup of Christmas cookies. Honigkuchen, Mandelbrot, Lebkuchen, Buttergebäck.
Bienenstich.
Oh, wait a minute, the cakes. Bienenstich.
Yeah.
You're right, Bienenstich, marble cake, Buttercreme Torte. Anyway, and holiday foods, back to the Christmas thing. Do any of you know herring salad? It's this great pink salad, it's got enough pickled beets in it to make it pink, and just enough herring to give it character. Anyway, we always had that. It's like an acquired taste, but I acquired it. And I have gotten my mother to eat it using sweet potatoes instead of potatoes, and putting a couple of jalapeno peppers in there. Anyway, it's a salad. You can push in any direction you want to. Let's see here. Oh, the best thing about Christmas was the 6th of December. The Germans had St. Nicholas Day. Anyway, I think this goes back to fossil times. I think German gift giving was on St. Nicholas Day originally, until Martin Luther got things mixed up. Anyway, so I have these memories about St. Nicholas Day. St. Nicholas would put my mother's Christmas cookies into my shoes and pass them off as he had been through there. I mean, there would be a mixture of Hershey's Kisses in there. But, it started you wondering on things that you never could see that you always heard about. And then I want to tell you about the absolute ultimate that happened one Christmas. I was about 8 or so. I get this stern note from St. Nicholas about my behavior and its possible implication for Christmas. And the note was written in my mother's handwriting. Anyway, innocence like that you can only protect. So I learned early that there were things that my mother needed to be protected from, as all kids do. Let's see here. I think I have, there's one more mystery I could cover. Now, I don't know who got exposed to this one. It's also a Christmas mystery. In some families, the Weihnachtsmann came, Santa Claus. In other families, the Christkind came, the Christ child. Anyway, I've always had it lodged back there as a mystery. It's a custom. Anyway, I looked it up in Wikipedia. It turns out the Christkind was a Martin Luther invention that was adopted by the Catholics in the South and the East. Anyway, it's an odd thing, but something I learned just looking up for this. All right, one more crack at resourcefulness. I don't remember anything else.
Tell your own story now.
I've got it.
No. Anyway, that's really all I have.
I've got it.
Okay, Jürgen, you have.
I'm tempted to talk about Santa's last visit. And because you said in Germany, you didn't know what was going on there, but you picked up some of it there. But I wrote a little snippet here about what happened to me on Christmas. Christmas has always been a special time, especially for children in both Germany and America. While in Germany, I can recall the Christmas tree, usually a fir tree with sparse branches, allowing real candles for lighting. Candles were never allowed to burn for long because of the fire hazard they presented. Tree ornaments were usually hand-carved. There were painted angels, sheep, trees, and of course, baby Jesus in the manger decorated the tree. We always celebrated Christmas Eve and never Christmas Day. Christmas Day was for family time, playing with toys and having a major Christmas dinner. When possible, we included my mother's parents. Omi, my grandmother, and Oba, my grandfather. My mother was their only child, and my sister and I were special to them. My Opa thought I had hung the moon and could do no wrong. Omi, on the other hand, took on the role of correcting me, and I recall needing a lot of it. She was unaccustomed to boys, and she quickly realized I would never hang the moon. Only called her Buza Omi, translated to mean grandmother. I'm glad Omi was close to my mother and my sister because as an adult I realized she was actually a very sweet person and loving grandmother and was right to correct me. I wished I had been nicer to her. Der Weihnachtsmann, Santa Claus, visited us in our apartment on Christmas Eve when I was 3 years old. Now this was in Peenemünde. Santa had a long white beard, black boots, and wore a long red coat trimmed in white along the sleeves and front coat opening. He always carried a sack of switches and some coal in the event we had been bad. He did not carry presents. They were already under the tree and we were only allowed to open them if Santa approved. It was a frightening event because deep in my heart I knew I didn't deserve any of the presents. I never thought of myself as a good person. I was being forced to lie if I wanted the presents under the tree, confirming my badness. I really wanted those presents, and I was going to have to lie to Santa Claus. Would it work? I was not confident. My sister and I had to stand before Santa Claus and answer his question, if we were good or bad. My sister was first and answered she was good. Santa approved and she broke out with a big smile because soon she would have access to her presents. And when it was my turn, I lied nervously saying I was good. He would know the truth and I would receive the switches and coal. Would I? But then Santa approved, making me suspicious of his knowledge of my badness, but now I would have access to my presents under the tree. Now, it was custom that Santa Claus would have a shot of schnapps before he left for the next apartment. But then it was already late and Santa stumbled somewhat while my father left to get a shot of schnapps. He then noticed Santa was drunk. Denying Santa a drink because he already had enough, Santa became belligerent. It was then that my father took Santa by the back of his collar, turned him toward the door, and threw Santa out of our apartment. I knew then that this Santa was not real because a real Santa was nice and only ate cookies, drank milk. That's German Christmas that I remember.
that I thought of when you were telling about being able to play. This was in Blossomwood, and we'd play in the creek and wherever we wanted to. And we were reminiscing with Ralph Heisinger one time, and he said he had the reputation in the neighborhood. It's as you know, Blossomwood is kind of in a valley, and it's all enclosed by higher areas. And he would be way across the valley there. And at about 5 o'clock, his mother would call him to dinner. And everyone knew, Ralphie! So that was, yeah, we all understand that. So yeah, we're having fun with this, and I hope you've enjoyed it as well. Now you have. Question here?
I had a great time there.
Were all of the available engineers brought from Peenemünde or some not selected?
Fairly small group, as it turns out. About 6,000 were working at Peenemünde, and only 120 were brought over.
118.
And that number changes, and we've got that. Kenny Mitchell, who was here the last time, we've got that secured in a book because we're calling it first wave, second wave, third wave. Essentially, all the German team members that came between 1945 and 1960. So there's still about 5 of those alive. So like Max Nine, Heinz Schwupp, they came a little later. But again, in the beginning it was about 120, and then there were others recruited. So.
I can answer that.
Sure.
My father was one of the second wave to come over in 1953, and looking through his papers, I recently found that even though these people, these engineers and scientists who were not brought over, who were not taken by the Soviets, but remained in the British, American, French sector, whatever sector they were in, my father happened to be in the British sector. The British, American and French, knew who these people were. They had them documented, and they, my father and all the other